At my brother's wedding, I was handed a paper badge that read Restricted Access Guest. Then my mom leaned in and said something that shattered me. Stay with me through this story, and if it makes you feel something, please show your support with a like, a share, and maybe even a subscribe. I walked into the grand ballroom with a small smile, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Weddings were supposed to be happy days, and this was my younger brother's big moment. Tyler looked handsome in his suit, and Harper, his bride, glowed with excitement. I wanted to be proud, to feel included, to belong. But instead, a woman at the front table handed me a paper badge that read, Restricted Access Guest. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. I looked at the badge, then at her, waiting for her to laugh and say, "Oops, wrong one." But she didn't. She clipped it onto my dress with a tight smile and moved on to the next person. My cheeks burned, and I turned to my mom for answers. Valerie stood tall and polished, her silver necklace sparkling under the lights. She leaned in close, her voice sharp but quiet. "Don't make a scene, Madeline. This is for the best. You should just be grateful you were invited." Her words hit harder than the badge. Grateful? For being shoved into the background of my own brother's wedding? I swallowed hard, fighting the sting in my eyes. Dad, as always, avoided looking at me. Douglas fiddled with his cufflinks, his mouth pressed into a thin line, like he wanted to say something but didn't dare. That silence was almost worse than Mom's cruelty. I glanced around and saw guests getting elegant satin ribbons pinned to their outfits. Family of the groom, special guest, bride's party. Everyone had a place. Everyone but me. When I tried to step toward the family seating, Mom's hand clamped on my wrist. "Not there," she hissed. "Your section is in the back. Don't embarrass us." I froze, humiliated, and let her guide me away as if I was some distant relative no one cared about. My heart sank deeper with every step toward the last rows. I could already hear faint whispers from the other guests, see the sideways glances. I felt small, unwanted, invisible. I wanted to cheer for Tyler, to hug him before he said his vows, to stand proudly as his sister. Instead, I sat alone, staring at the badge clipped to my dress like a scarlet letter. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. My mom wanted me pushed aside, and Harper was fine with it too. And the person who could have stopped it, my brother, had chosen not to. I sat there, smiling weakly at strangers, but inside, I promised myself one thing. I wasn't going to let this end the way they thought. I held the paper badge in my hand, the words Restricted Access Guest staring back at me like a cruel joke. I thought maybe I could still slip into the family section. Maybe no one would notice. But the usher stopped me with a polite smile that carried no kindness. "Sorry, ma'am. Family seats are reserved." His eyes flicked to the badge on my dress, and that was it. I wasn't family anymore. At least, not in their eyes. I walked toward the back rows, each step feeling heavier than the last. Relatives turned their heads as I passed. I caught whispers, soft enough to sting. "Why is she sitting there?" one aunt muttered. "Did something happen?" another replied. A cousin smirked at me like I had earned this humiliation. My cheeks burned, but I forced my head high. The ceremony hadn't even started, and already I was erased. I tried to laugh it off in my mind, to tell myself that maybe it wasn't intentional, but then I heard Harper's voice carry across the room. She stood with her bridesmaids, champagne glass in hand, her dress sparkling under the lights. "Better she's back there than ruining the front row," she said, her lips curling into a smile. The bridesmaids giggled, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. The words hit me like a slap. I froze, staring at her. She knew I could hear. She wanted me to hear. I thought about confronting her, about marching over and telling her exactly what I thought. But before I could move, my mother appeared at my side. Valerie looked impeccable as always, her hair pinned neatly, her makeup flawless. She didn't look at me with pride, not even with kindness. Just cold satisfaction. "At least we let you come," she said flatly, as if my very presence was a burden she had been forced to bear. My lips parted, but no words came out. My chest tightened, my throat felt raw, and still I said nothing. Because what was there to say? She had made her choice. My own mother had decided I wasn't worthy of being seen as part of her family on the most important day for my brother. I sat in the far back, clutching the edge of my dress, trying to stay invisible. My dad walked past, his eyes catching mine for just a second. I thought he might say something, might take my side, but he quickly looked away, as if even meeting my gaze would cause conflict he couldn't handle. The music began, and guests rose to their feet as Harper glided down the aisle. Cameras flashed, relatives smiled, and everyone played their part. Except me. I was the shadow shoved into the corner, the sister who didn't belong. And as I watched my family beam in the front row, I realized this wasn't just exclusion. This was betrayal. I couldn't sit through the whole ceremony without my stomach twisting. Every time I looked at Tyler smiling at Harper, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. He was my brother. We grew up side by side, sharing secrets, fighting over the TV remote, protecting each other when things at home got rough. And now he was pretending like I didn't even exist. When the vows ended and the crowd clapped, I stayed seated, my hands pressed together so tightly my knuckles hurt. At the reception, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I spotted Tyler near the bar, shaking hands with guests, his smile wide and easy. I made my way through the crowd until I stood in front of him. He looked surprised, almost uncomfortable, as if he had been hoping I would just fade into the background and stay there. "Tyler," I said, keeping my voice low. "Why? Why am I the only one treated like I don't belong? Why would Mom hand me a badge that says restricted access guest at your wedding? I'm your sister." He glanced around nervously, tugging at his collar. His voice dropped, but his words felt like daggers. "Maddie, it's just easier this way. Don't make this about you." I stared at him, my mouth falling open. "Easier? For who? For Mom? For Harper? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me?" Before he could answer, Harper glided up to us, her gown sparkling under the reception lights, her perfect smile sharp as glass. She looped her arm through Tyler's and tilted her head at me. "Oh, come on, Maddie. Don't start drama tonight. It's our wedding. You always make everything bigger than it is." Her words cut deep. Dramatic. That was the label she loved to throw on me, the one she used to make Tyler doubt me whenever I tried to warn him about her manipulations. I looked at my brother, hoping he'd defend me, tell her to stop. But he didn't. He just stood there, silent, eyes darting away like a guilty child. I took a step back, my chest aching. "So that's it then? You're really choosing her and Mom over me?" My voice trembled, but I forced myself not to cry. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't deny it. He didn't reach for me, didn't try to make it right. His silence was my answer. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had lost him. Not to some stranger on the street, but to the woman standing at his side and the mother who had always demanded control. I turned away, the sound of laughter and music blurring into a dull roar in my ears. It was clear now. If I wanted respect, if I wanted justice, I couldn't look for it in Tyler's eyes anymore. He had already made his choice. I tried once more to reclaim some piece of dignity. When everyone was being ushered into the ceremony hall, I spotted Dad sitting alone for a moment near the edge of the family row. My heart lifted. Maybe I could sit with him. Maybe I didn't have to be banished to the back like some stranger. I walked quickly toward the empty seat beside him, clutching my small purse like a shield. But before I could even sit down, I felt a sharp tug on my arm. Mom's nails dug into my skin, her voice low and venomous. "Not here, Maddie. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Go to your seat in the back." I looked at Dad, silently begging him to say something, to stop her, but his eyes dropped to the floor. He didn't move, didn't speak, just shifted uncomfortably as if my humiliation was too much for him to witness. My chest tightened as I let Mom steer me away, her grip firm and unyielding. So I sat alone again, tucked in the far rows where no one would notice if I cried. When the music began, the entire room stood, and Harper entered like a queen on display. Cameras flashed, people gasped, and my mom's face lit up brighter than I had ever seen. She leaned forward in her seat, hands clasped together, tears shining in her eyes. Pride radiated from her, pride she had never once shown for me. I watched her beam as Tyler kissed Harper's hand, as vows were exchanged, as rings slipped onto fingers. All the while, I felt erased, as if my existence was an inconvenience in this picture-perfect family portrait they wanted to present. Every smile, every flash of the camera, reminded me that I wasn't supposed to be part of it. By the time the reception started, I tried to tell myself it couldn't get worse. But I was wrong. Place cards were arranged neatly on tables close to the dance floor for family and friends of honor. My card, however, was tucked at a table far in the back, near the doors, surrounded by distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. It was like they wanted me hidden, out of sight, out of mind. I sat there quietly, forcing a smile, stabbing at food I couldn't taste. Then Jordan, my cousin, slid into the seat beside me. He wasn't the type to mince words. Leaning close, his voice low enough so only I could hear, he said, "They humiliated you, Maddie. Everyone can see it. If I were you, I'd walk out right now and never look back." His words hit me hard, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. I glanced at the glowing head table, my brother laughing with Harper, my mom clinking glasses like she was the star of the night. And I knew then this wasn't just a wedding. It was my family choosing to erase me, right in front of everyone. I slipped away from my table for a few minutes, hoping that some fresh air would clear my head. The laughter and music from the reception spilled through the open doors, but behind the hall, near the powder room, it was quieter. That's when I heard voices, sharp and smug, drifting out from the corner where Harper and her bridesmaids huddled with glasses of champagne. I paused, hidden just behind the wall, and their words slid through me like knives. Harper's voice was smooth and satisfied. I told Tyler it was me or her. She was never going to be in our lives. And he chose me. A burst of laughter followed, the bridesmaids clinking their glasses in agreement. One of them whispered something I couldn't catch, but Harper laughed again, adding, "His mother didn't even hesitate." She said, "Good, she was always a problem." My heart pounded in my ears. My chest felt tight, every word slicing through the fragile hope I had left. So it hadn't just been Harper's cruelty. My mother had agreed. Valerie had conspired with her to erase me from the family, to make me nothing more than an outsider at my own brother's wedding. I pressed a hand against the wall, steadying myself. I wanted to storm in there, to scream, to tell Harper that she didn't know me, that she could never truly erase me. But something held me back. Their laughter was too casual, too sure of itself. They thought they had won already. When I finally stepped back into the reception hall, the noise hit me all at once again. Music, clinking glasses, the sound of people celebrating. My eyes swept the room until I saw my father sitting alone near the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Douglas looked older than I remembered, his shoulders hunched, his eyes fixed on the amber liquid swirling in his glass. He wasn't smiling, wasn't mingling. He was just existing quietly like always. I walked closer, hoping maybe this time he would see me, maybe this time he would speak up. But he didn't even notice me hovering. He just raised the glass to his lips, avoiding everything and everyone, including me. That was when something inside me broke. I realized there would be no rescue, no family member standing up for me, no miracle that would make my mom or brother suddenly see the truth. They had chosen Harper, and they had chosen each other. They had cut me out, and they were proud of it. But as I stood there, watching them all laugh at the head table, a calmness settled over me. If they wanted me gone, if they wanted me erased, then fine. But I wasn't going to leave quietly. I wasn't going to let Harper and my mother win this game they thought they controlled. In that moment, I decided. This wasn't over. Not even close. They would regret humiliating me. And when I was finished, they'd understand exactly who they had underestimated. I slipped out of the reception hall without a single word to anyone. No goodbyes, no explanations, nothing. The music was loud, the laughter even louder, but I felt invisible as I walked past the doorman and into the cool night air. The badge on my dress crinkled when I moved, and I ripped it off, shoving it deep into my purse like it was poison. They thought they had broken me, but they were wrong. Driving home wasn't an option. My emotions were too raw, my thoughts too sharp. Instead, I parked in a quiet corner of town, the glow from the streetlights spilling across my dashboard. I sat there, staring at my phone, replaying every cruel thing Harper had said, every way my mother had encouraged it. If Harper was the reason I had been pushed out, then she was the key. I needed to know more about her, to find a crack in that polished surface she showed everyone. And then it hit me. College. I remembered a name, a face, someone Harper used to date long before Tyler. At the time, she had brushed it off as just an old fling. But I remembered the way she avoided the subject whenever it came up. My gut told me there was more there, something Tyler didn't know. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I hadn't dialed in years, Sophie Grant. Sophie had been a mutual friend back in those days, someone who had always been closer to Harper, but never liked her much. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen, but then I pressed the call button. The phone rang twice before Sophie answered, her voice groggy but curious. "Maddie. Wow, I didn't expect to hear from you." I swallowed hard. "Sophie, I need to ask you something. It's about Harper." There was a long pause on the other end before Sophie finally sighed. "I was wondering when someone would call me about her." "What do you want to know?" "Back in college," I said carefully, she dated someone. I can't remember his name. Do you remember what really happened? Sophie gave a bitter laugh. You mean James? Yeah, I remember. She was with him even when she was telling everyone she was on a break with Tyler. It wasn't some innocent little fling, Maddie. She cheated. A lot. She'd sneak out of study groups just to meet up with James. Everyone knew about it, except Tyler. My stomach turned, the anger inside me boiling hotter. So it's true, I whispered. It's not just true, Sophie said firmly. It's proof that Harper isn't who she pretends to be. If Tyler knew half of it, he'd never have married her. I sat there in silence, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. For the first time all night, I felt something other than humiliation. I felt power. This wasn't just gossip. This was the beginning of their undoing. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with Sophie's words. Every detail of Harper's lies replayed in my head, but I knew that just knowing the truth wasn't enough. If I wanted to expose her, I needed proof, something undeniable, something no one could sweep under the rug or dismiss as jealousy. So instead of tossing and turning in bed, I opened my laptop and started digging. It didn't take long to find the trail. Harper had always been careless, posting pictures and then deleting them when it suited her. But the internet never really forgets. Old tagged photos showed her with James at bars, at parties, even slipping into his car late at night while she was supposedly on a break with Tyler. The timestamps lined up perfectly with the months she claimed she and Tyler had been working on their relationship. My heart pounded as I saved everything, screenshots, dates, even old comments from friends who had teased her about sneaking around. I didn't stop there. I remembered Harper used to share an online shopping account with one of her roommates. A few password resets later, I had access to receipts. Hotel rooms. Dinners for two. One in particular stood out. It was paid for the same night Tyler had been out of town for a tournament. I copied it all, building a folder of evidence too strong to ignore. The final blow came from messages Sophie still had saved. She sent them to me, Harper's words in black and white, talking about how she could always fall back on Tyler if James got boring. My hands shook as I read them, a mix of fury and vindication flooding through me. By dawn, I had everything I needed, but I wasn't going to rush into it. Timing was everything. The next day, our family was scheduled to have brunch together before Harper and Tyler left for their honeymoon. Everyone would be there, my parents, relatives, even Harper's side of the family. It was the perfect stage. Still, I knew I couldn't walk into this alone. As strong as my anger burned, I also knew how quickly my mother would try to shut me down, how Harper would twist things to make me look like the bitter sister who couldn't let go. I needed someone in my corner. That's when I called Jordan. He picked up on the second ring, his voice steady and direct as always. Maddie, what's going on? I didn't waste time. I told him everything, the cheating, the receipts, the screenshots. He didn't sound surprised, just disgusted. When I finished, there was a pause, and then he said, Good. About time someone knocked her off that pedestal. I'll stand by you tomorrow. Let them try to spin it. Relief washed through me. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. Tomorrow, at brunch, the truth would finally come out. And Harper wouldn't see it coming. The brunch was held in a sunlit room at a fancy hotel, with white linens on the tables and champagne glasses clinking as people laughed and chatted. Harper floated around in a pale yellow dress, her smile wide and flawless, as if nothing could touch her. Tyler looked tired but happy, still glowing from the night before. My mother, of course, sat near the center, talking loudly, as though she owned the room. I walked in quietly, carrying nothing but my purse, though inside it was a storm waiting to be unleashed. My heart hammered in my chest, but my face stayed calm. I knew what I was about to do would change everything, but I had already crossed the line in my mind. There was no turning back. Halfway through the meal, as plates of pancakes and omelets were being passed around, I stood up. The clatter of silverware faded, and all eyes turned to me. I smiled politely, holding my glass. I'd like to make a toast, I said, my voice steady though my pulse raced. People murmured their approval, glasses lifted, and I glanced at Harper. She looked expectant, maybe even smug, as if she thought I was about to swallow my pride and praise her. But instead, I set my glass down and pulled a small stack of papers from my bag. I want to toast to honesty, I began. To the truth, the foundation of every marriage. And since truth matters so much, it's only fair we share it here, in front of everyone. Confusion spread across faces. Harper stiffened, her smile faltering. I laid the first page on the table. a receipt for a hotel stay, dated during the time she was supposedly repairing things with Tyler. Gasps rippled through the room. I followed it with a series of screenshots, photos of Harper with James, laughing in his car, kissing at a party. The timestamps glowed on the screen of my phone as I held it up for everyone to see. The room fell completely silent. Forks were suspended in midair. Tyler's face drained of color as he stared at the images, his mouth slightly open. Harper's hand shot out, grabbing at the papers. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice shrill. "She's making this up. Those pictures are old. They don't mean anything." But her panic was obvious. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I laid out the timeline, one piece after another, every receipt, every text message Sophie had forwarded to me. "This isn't old. This was during the time you told Tyler you were faithful. During the time you said he was your only choice. You lied, Harper. To him, to all of us." Tyler pushed his chair back, his hands trembling as he picked up the photos. His eyes darted between Harper and me, searching for a crack in the truth. "Is this real?" he whispered. Harper stammered, her face red, her words tripping over each other in desperate denial. But no one believed her. The evidence was too clear. The silence in the room was louder than any accusation. And in that silence, I knew. The truth had finally landed. Tyler's chair screeched back against the polished floor as he shoved himself to his feet. His face was pale, his jaw trembling, eyes burning with betrayal. For a split second, he looked at Harper like he didn't recognize her. Then, without a word, he stormed out of the brunch room. The door slammed behind him, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Harper staggered to her feet, reaching after him. "Tyler, wait. It's not what it looks like. Please." But the heavy door didn't budge. He was gone, and the reality of it hit her like a brick. Then the storm broke. Valerie, my mother, turned on me, her voice slicing through the air like a knife. "You jealous little snake," she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "You've always hated Harper. You couldn't stand that your brother finally found happiness, so you had to ruin it. You're spiteful, Maddie, pathetic." Every word was meant to cut me down, but I didn't flinch. I had expected this. Valerie had always chosen appearances over truth, and Harper was her shining star. Her attack wasn't surprising. What came next, though, silenced the room even further. Douglas, my father, rose slowly from his chair. For years, he'd been Valerie's shadow, always quiet, always accommodating. But now, his voice carried the weight of decades. "Enough, Valerie." She spun on him, furious. "Don't you dare defend her." "I'm not defending her," Douglas said, his tone steady but sharp. "I'm telling the truth. This," he gestured to the scattered photos, receipts, and texts, "happened because of you. You've enabled Harper at every turn. You raised her to believe she could lie, cheat, and destroy people's lives without consequence. And Maddie had the courage to finally stop it." The color drained from Valerie's face as gasps and murmurs spread across the tables. For once, people weren't nodding along with her. They were nodding at me. One aunt whispered, she did the right thing. Another guest shook her head and muttered, "Poor Tyler." At least someone told him. And then, almost hesitantly at first, a smattering of applause began. It grew louder, filling the space with something I had never expected, support. Applause for me. I stood frozen, my hands trembling as I gripped the back of my chair. Valerie's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She was cornered, stripped of the power she always held. Harper sank back into her seat, her face streaked with tears and makeup, her body shaking. No one comforted her. No one reached out. Even her friends avoided her eyes, their silence louder than judgment. Later, I heard that Tyler didn't go home that night. He checked into a different hotel across town. And Harper? She ended up alone, dragging her suitcase into a hotel lobby, her once perfect world crumbling. The golden bride abandoned. The mother exposed. And for the first time, I felt the weight of years of silence lifting off my shoulders. The truth had finally burned through the lies, and there was no going back. Weeks passed, but the fallout from that brunch clung to the family like a shadow that refused to lift. Word spread quickly, and within days, Harper's perfect facade crumbled. Tyler, shattered by the betrayal, wasted no time. Quietly, and with a face that looked 10 years older than it should, he filed for an annulment. Their marriage hadn't even settled into memory before it was wiped from existence. The wedding that had humiliated me became nothing more than a cautionary tale whispered through our relatives' circles. I watched from a distance, torn between satisfaction and sadness. Tyler had chosen them over me, and in doing so, lost everything he thought was solid. Weeks later, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, his eyes heavy, his shoulders slumped. He looked like the brother I once knew, but also like a man who'd been forced to confront his own weakness. "Maddie," he said, his voice breaking the silence, "I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. For the badge, for the way I treated you, for letting them," his voice caught, "for letting them erase you." I stared at him for a long moment, the memory of that humiliating paper badge flashing in my mind. All the whispers, all the laughter, my mother's cold eyes, Harper's smug grin. It all burned like acid in my chest. "Tyler," I said quietly, "family doesn't hand you a badge that says restricted access. Family doesn't lock you out to keep appearances. If you want to earn your way back into my life, it won't be with apologies. It'll be with actions." His eyes glistened, and he nodded, accepting the weight of what I'd said. For the first time, he didn't try to excuse himself. Valerie, of course, never softened. To her, I was the villain who destroyed her dream wedding, who embarrassed the family. She muttered venom whenever my name was mentioned, but I didn't care anymore. Her approval was a currency I no longer needed. Douglas, however, surprised me. My father began reaching out more, inviting me to coffee, asking about my work, listening in a way he never had before. We rebuilt slowly, brick by brick, finding common ground in the silence that used to divide us. One chilly evening, I stood in my backyard, staring at the fire pit as flames licked the night air. In my hand was the paper badge, creased, faded, and yet still heavy with humiliation. I held it over the fire, watching the word restricted curl and blacken as the paper burned. "Never again," I whispered. The ashes drifted upward, carried into the dark sky. I wasn't just burning a piece of paper. I was burning the part of me that once begged to belong. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had chosen myself. And this time, there would be no restrictions. Do you believe Maddie made the right choice by exposing the truth and setting boundaries with her family? Or should she have given them another chance without revenge? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear what you think. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.